Welcome to today's Seidokan Saturday. 3 more basic Tuidi that I teach for getting ready for the EQ, or that I test on for the EQ and beyond. And I gave my whole precursor on the Tuidi, the history of Uehara, the similarity between Motobu Urundi, the Tuidi there, versus the Chinna of China, versus the Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. I have a student from years ago when I taught Kempo, that when I went to the Japanese Okinawan arts, he went to the Chinese style. And after years of, he'd spend a month, twice a year, living at the Shaolin Temple, finally got accepted, and they only teach the Chinna once you get to the advanced stages and are accepted as a disciple. And he brought back from one of his trips, because he studied karate with me and kung fu with the monks, brought back from one of his trips a list of the Chinna techniques that he had been taught. And then I compared it to an old list that Sensei Jerry Hobbs had of his Aiki Jiu-Jitsu / Tuidi techniques. And the Chinna list and Hobbs's Aiki Jiu-Jitsu Tuidi list were almost in the exact same sequence and order that they taught them. So somewhere along the line, there is a hierarchy of simplicity to difficulty, or some crossover in the sequential learning that occurs. Again, the Tuidi has some technical variations from Chinna and Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. So, moving on to our next techniques. Another very common, and I just instructed my students, and I will say this again, anytime we do a technique, we say, okay, here, grab my wrist. Fights don't start like that, okay? He's getting all violent, I'm going, hey, man. And from here, he may grab my wrist, and that's where the punch, right? And then the fight began. So, putting things contextually, and when he grabs my wrist, if I just immediately try to grab and he's strong, I'm already hit. So I have to do things like spit on him, or headbutt him, or knee, or face hit, or something to stop that punch. I may even actually have to block this punch temporarily before I go into the technique. So all 3 of our techniques today are going to come from this same side grab leading into the right or left-handed punch, depending on who the guy is. So again, for the teaching purposes, we always start really simplistically. But even in sumo, right, we get in here and the guy has the wrist. It's not legal, but if we were here and he reached in and grabbed my wrist, I could use my Tuidi technique at this point if it were legal in sumo or in high school wrestling or judo or some other things. But small joint moves and those kinds of things, there's lots of prohibitions and restrictions on how and when to apply those. So he's going to grab as if to punch. I want to get off to the side right away. And as I do, this hand comes up. So I'm moving to the side, bringing this hand up. I come underneath, getting the meat of his hand as I do this, and pull it down. Now I step back to where I was, because I'm moving that shoulder away from me, and I'm pulling on the thumb. I have his wrist bent toward him. I'm pulling on the thumb, and I'm pushing here. It's the same as this wrist lock, only my hands are now inverted, and I'm pulling instead of pushing the hand forward down, I'm pulling the hand down. So I move offline, get it, take it to the middle. Now I cross and unwind as I pull the thumb and push on the pinky and ring finger metacarpals into the takedown. Here again, we can lock, we can break, we can stomp and pull, crack the wrist, whatever we're going to do from that point. Okay? Once again, he grabs, come under, step in, twist back, unwind, twisting the wrist down. Okay? So to get the other view, same side hand, but this time he's going to do me. Comes under, gets the meat, pushes down, and finishes however he decides I deserve. Okay? Next, same side, same concept. This time, I'm going to grab over the top, come around the top. Now again, I'm not going to stay right here. On this one, I may step back or even forward a little bit. Usually a little easier to come back, away from it. Bringing them around. This is our reverse wrist lock. There's I think it's Nikyo. I don't remember my Aiki Jiu-Jitsu terms, but it's this wrist lock. So from here, once I've stepped back, get his top of his hand flat, coming around, peeling out from the thumb, again pressing forward. So once I've stepped back, I can either continue to pull or press forward and down. Both are okay, but they rely on this pressure, middle back of his hand. I don't want to come up over. A lot of beginners like to fold their hand and they come up over the fingers and you don't really have anything there, okay? I don't have anything here. I want to be on the hand. Sometimes I'll cross my thumbs, sometimes I'll hold and double hand push, whatever it is, so I'm pulling on the wrist joint toward me and I'm pushing on his metacarpals toward him as I step, whichever way I'm going to step. Okay, that's number 2. Now number 3, I'm just going to continue from here. I'm going to use, I've got to use the cross hand side. So I come up at his elbow and drive up. From here I cross and throw down. So this, the one we had before, I had his hand turned in this way. This one I have his hand turned out this way on the takedown. So it's very similar to the one from last week where what Jody Paul used to like, and tip the bucket. You don't tip the bucket right here like this. So where we had this wrist position before, now I have this wrist position. But still, once I get to here, whichever side I'm on, once I get to here and push into him, right, I can just take him down right here. But if I want to throw, again, I'm doing the jump to the wind, driving down and through, one foot down, okay? Then from here, again, I can hold and pull that up till he doesn't like it. So 1, wrist lock. 2, reverse wrist lock. 3, reverse wrist lock into the throwing techniques. That's our last 3 basic Tuidi to this level. And again, there are dozens of others. There are crossovers, there are combinations, flow drills. We'll add those as we go. But for this level, that's pretty much all I'm going to expect, or some variation thereof. Brown belts can be inventive and come up with their own attack scenarios, so forth. Thank you for joining. Tuidi's fun, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And until next week, as always, let's keep practicing.